All right. Good afternoon and welcome to this week's live stream on traveling on everyday spend. As you can see, I'm in a different setting this week. Problems in the house and needed to move to the basement. So feeling a bit like Matt today. And Matt will know what I'm talking about. Um, got a lot to talk about. I really thought this week was going to be a slow week. I was wrong. Plenty of things to talk about, and can't wait to share what I've come up with you. Of course, want to thank each and every person that has taken the time to watch the live stream or even the recorded the videos and the shorts, and providing your comments and your suggestions. Really appreciate it. And if you find this content beneficial, please consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It really means everything to me as a small channel, and it would really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and just jump on in and get started. Um, let's see. So the items that we're going to cover tonight is more bonus offers with credit cards to talk about. The transfer bonuses, Q2's almost over, so make sure you get your Freedom Flex all set up. We'll touch on the Hyatt credit card multiples with Mr. and Mrs. Smith's, the Capital One Lounge at JFK, Virgin Atlantic and El Al Airlines, choice privileges, and their devaluation of preferred hotel rewards, which was unfortunate. Some information on Hilton and the small luxury hotels. And are we expecting a revolutionary change coming for Southwest Airlines? We'll wrap up with. So we'll go ahead and get started, and want to say hey to Matt. Thanks for stopping through. Really appreciate it. And let's see what we've got as far as our bonuses that we have right now. So we've talked about the Hilton cards last week, and I'll make sure to put a link in the description where we talked about these. This still will run through July, so we've got plenty of time to take your time and figure out if it's going to be good for you and which card is going to fit your particular situation. We also have the Marriott Bonvoy Business still, which is if you're interested in business cards, is a really good option, especially obviously with business cards not counting towards your personal cards and your 524 and such. And because of it being such a good deal, really could take care of a whole vacation for you. So something to keep in mind. Raising the American Express Gold and the Platinum cards. The Gold card, which normally has 60,000 points, you can still get into your in private or incognito mode and be able to see that you're at, you can go from 60,000 to 90,000 points very easily. So if you're interested in that card, make sure you're going through that to see what's the best option that you might have. The one I was surprised about today, though, when I did it, was the American Express Platinum. I had seen on some people's sites of referral links being needed to get the 175,000 points for American Express Platinum. And I was able to see it just in incognito mode. Now, I went into it once, didn't see it. Went in the first time, saw it, went in a second time, didn't see it, but I did see it a third time. So if interested, if there's a referral link, great, that you might be able to use from someone. If not, take a look at going through that. You may come across what I did at 175,000 points, which would be an outstanding bonus for that personal card. Then, of course, we've got the Delta Sky Miles cards, which are still going on. Well, actually, pretty new, actually, with the Sky Miles Gold, Platinum, and the Reserve. I actually had the Gold business card and upgrade, and then closed that. Got the business platinum when it was at 100,000 points miles, which are very similar to the personal card. So definitely, if you're a person of Delta, which I definitely am, the 15% off on the miles when you're making purchases on Delta. really makes the transfer of Amex points to Delta much more much better for me, at least, because I do use my Amex points to fly Delta. So something to consider for that. And then for Chase, the Freedom Flex, got to provide that reminder again. I went in there today in the incognito mode and was able to see $150 plus the 5% for groceries. So once again, that I thought that might be a short-term thing we would see in the incognito mode. It is not. So if you are interested in the Freedom Flex and want to, in the grocery category is something that would benefit you, take a look at that, because you may still be able to see a version of that and go in once or twice, because that number does change. And then we have the British Airways, Aer Lingus, and Iberia cards that are still at the 85,000 points limited time. We, of course, with Chase, we never necessarily know when it will specifically end. Then we, of course, talked about the Southwest cards at their 85,000 points last week. That's still going on. And then United actually jumped in with their cards. All of their cards are at limited time offers for miles. I've got that listed here. And on top of that, each of those cards will provide an additional 5,000 bonus miles if you put an authorized user on the card within the first 3 months. So a lot of cards, a lot of travel cards that are available for you. Definitely kind of pick and choose, because depending on where you're at in your journey, these cards may not fit best for you, depending upon what your goals are. So try to make sure to have a plan of what's where you see yourself growing or trying to get to, and making sure if these actually do fit the category. So, but a lot of intro bonus offers that we've got to talk about there. And then City, the Strata Premier, of course. Now, as you saw, that I don't have the Sapphire Reserve and Sapphire Preferred listed. That ended today. So hopefully, if you were interested in those cards, you were able to take advantage of it when it was at the 75,000 points. As far as the Strata Premier, still at the 75,000, and then the personal City Advantage American Airlines card, 100,000 miles for $10,000 worth of spend for 3 months. Excellent if you're a person that flies American and has that kind of spend, but wanted to make sure to point that out to you. And so that will wrap up our bonus offers that we've got. As far as the June transfer bonuses, still we have a few out there of Avianca at 15% through the end of the month. We've got the Marriott Bonvoy and the Virgin Atlantic Flying Club through June 15th, right this weekend. And then, of course, Turkish Miles and Smiles at the 50% through June 15th. So if you're interested in any of them, about time to get on those. Nothing that is really historic, though. So if so, don't worry about it. If there's not anything that really stands out, there's always July. And then I will also make sure to put a link for last week's live stream, because I went over a lot of the purchase options of miles and points that are still currently out there. As far as the Q2 Freedom Flex, this is just a reminder that Q2 is going to be ending soon. And if for any reason you did not activate your Q2 benefits, you have until the 14th to get that done, to be able to qualify. So I wanted to just throw that out because obviously we had a couple of increased values on if you booked hotels through Chase Travel, you went from 5% to 9%, and for dining, you went from 5% to 7% through June, and then Amazon stayed at the 5%. So just a reminder, I'm sure most people have already done what they needed to do, but wanted to make sure that you, as a reminder for that. And then Hyatt credit cards, as far as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Now, unfortunately, when this rolled out, not a lot to be excited about when we first saw this. They obviously went live with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And as I mentioned, they weren't encouraging. We obviously went with dynamic pricing, which was not really that surprising because Mr. and Mrs. Smith have such a wide range of costs involved. So not overly surprising with that. And then, of course, we also found out that really, even for awards, we were not going to get great value, anywhere from maybe 96 cents a point to maybe 1.4. While I'm not married to worrying about points per points per dollar or cents, it is something to still have as a baseline so that you have an idea of what you're getting, especially when you're used to, at least for me, I'm used to seeing at least 2 cents a point for Hyatt. And even for my trip during Christmas time in Australia, it's somewhere in the almost 10 cents a point, just by because they're so overly inflated pricing during the Christmas and New Year's there. Um, so that was the kind of the down thing. What we did find out today, as of today, is that we didn't hear about what the credit cards were going to do if you had a Hyatt credit card, where you're going to get the same multiplier as you get with the rest of the portfolio for Hyatt. And we found out today it will be at the 4x that is for all other Hyatts on the credit card. So it does help a little bit if you're going to pay cash for this. Now, of course, you still don't necessarily know what the benefits you're going to get, whether you're a globalist, a discoverist, or an explorer. And if you're paying cash, then you may be looking at other options of where you might want to spend your money at to get there. So it is something. It's still not the most ideal situation, especially when I talk about Hilton in the small luxury hotels that Hyatt lost, gave up, whatever you want to say it might have been, which looks much better than what Hyatt currently is showing with Mr. and Mrs. Smith. So something to keep in mind. I was hoping to see more out of this. I'm a person that likes going to Hyatt, but this is not something that's high on my list at all. Virgin Atlantic and El Al. Interesting. They are now going to have a code share agreement. And it's a pretty simple one, actually. So what they're going to basically do is, and as I mentioned on here, El Al, if you don't know, is basically the Israeli national airline and flag carriers, just like you would see with the Etihads, in the other Middle Eastern, Qatar, and such are their national brands. This one is just focusing on the flight from London to Tel Aviv. And what is going on is that El Al has already been traveling from Tel Aviv to London Heathrow. Now, what this will end up doing is that Virgin Atlantic will restart going to Tel Aviv, which they had stopped doing. Their fleet, they basically, as I mentioned, currently fly that route, and then Virgin Atlantic will start in September going to Tel Aviv. I get this from 1 mile at a time, as far as where they got it from per head of points, was that as of June 19th, you're going to be able to use Virgin points to fly El Al, which is interesting because El Al is not part of any of the major alliances that you would normally see of the Sky Team, the Star Alliance, or One World. And so Virgin not only is going to be, they're already a Sky Team member, they have their special arrangement with ANA, and now we're going to end up seeing where they're going to be being able to use points with El Al. Now, while that sounds good at the surface, there's going to be some questions that need to be answered of really how good this is going to be. So right now, if you took an example of flying from Miami to Tel Aviv in business class on El Al, you can use Alaska Airlines miles to be able to fly there for only 70,000 points, 70,000 miles, which is an excellent number to be able to fly business class from Miami to Tel Aviv. Now, if you look at Delta, they are as high as 320,000 points, which is almost not surprising, but wow, that's such a huge difference. Then you have Qantas, which is an option, but they don't necessarily show all of the redemption options, and especially are not that good when it comes to flying in and out of the United States. So they're not necessarily the best points in being able to use them. And then what we need to be able to see is where is Virgin going to fall at in their numbers. Now, if obviously, I think it's easy for us to make a good guess that it's going to be somewhere between Alaska Airlines and Delta, but what number is that? And also, is the problem, unless El Al changes, El Al does not release a lot of award seating on their flights. And if that doesn't change, then this ability to use Virgin points for this is not going to have the benefits that it really could, especially because Virgin Atlantic points are so easy to get, and so many sales and so many ways to be able to earn them and transfer. So we're going to have to end up looking at that. Now, I do want to point out some information about El Al, because I really found this interesting as far as they're concerned. A couple of things. One is they recently started beginning negotiations on getting another 40 Boeing 737 MAX narrow body airplanes. They do a lot of the flights with that. They will be looking at doing this through both purchase and through lease options for that. Now, the delivery of those are expected to be done over a number of years, with the first ones to start in 2027. Now, this would represent the largest aircraft order for them that they've had. And so it'll be a little bit of switching out some of their airlines, some of their planes, but to add a few more, but we just don't necessarily know yet of what it's going to be specifically for. I see Matt's kind of trying. Chase will be opening the lounge at LAX small, though. Yeah, I did just see that as far as them opening. And the reality is, obviously, for Chase and Capital One, they need to start getting their numbers up if we're going to really get a lot out of these lounges with those two. It's been a year or two that we're obviously been saying, oh, we're really looking for it. They have a very good product, but they got to spread it around a lot more for it to be something for, even for me as a leisure flyer, that is going to be able to see it and experience it from time to time. The Capital One lounges, I have not been to one yet. I should be able to go to the Dallas one on my flight back from Australia at the end of the year for about an hour. So I look forward to seeing that, but really want to see it get expanded to really make it a benefit of these cards for both Chase and for Capital One. So as far as El Al, we are seeing that expansion going on for that. The other thing that a couple of interesting points that I saw, which was interesting about El Al, and some of this I knew, but some I didn't, and I thought this would be interesting to share with you all if you all don't know. So right now, they've been the only airline consistently providing service to Israel since October of 2023. Now, that's not too surprising, but it's really helped them in their economics to be able to make a lot more money because they haven't had the competition. Now, that's going to change shortly as their situation there in Israel gets straightened out a little bit. We're going to see more airlines going back into there. But they ground the airplanes one day every week, from sundown on Friday to sundown on Saturday, and it's for the Jewish Sabbath that they've done ever since the airline was founded, which I thought was interesting. I had heard about the costs that they do when it comes to security. But I was kind of amazed at some of these numbers and wanted to share those with you. They reportedly spend about 1 billion Israeli shekels, which ends up being $280 million a year, on approximately 3,000 security personnel. Now, that is mostly undercover, both on the planes as well as different airports around the world where the El Al flies. As well as, of course, what they have in Tel Aviv. And then in addition to that, they're the only airline in the world that actually has all their planes equipped with missile defense systems. And that began in the mid 2000s after, I believe it was in 2002 or around that point, where there was a person that went with a shoulder launcher to attack one of the planes. And they started doing that. And so they basically use this commercial multispectral infrared countermeasure, which is called C-Music, and that is about $1 million per aircraft to install. So they have an enormous amount of costs that are not normal for most airlines, obviously. And so it's an interesting thing. I would like to be able to get a chance to fly on one just to see what it's like. But that's what we're looking at with Virgin Atlantic and some of the growth and some of the topics of El Al from a cost standpoint, as well as what they're going to be able to provide. And so hopefully that will be some good information we'll be able to work with. As far as the next one, the Capital One Lounge, I think most people know about the lounge going to be opening up in Terminal 4. This will be the fourth, at least planned for the fourth. We have Dallas, Fort Worth, Denver, and then Dulles in Washington, D.C. currently that are open and active. This will be the fourth one coming up, but we don't have a timeline yet. The features of it is what I would expect. It's going to have definitely a New York flavor to it, where it comes from everything from the art that's done there that had been, some of it's been commissioned from New York local artists. You're going to have partnerships with local mixologists and bakeries, coffee roasters, and local breweries. You're going to end up having a bodega there, which will be interesting, offering coffee, bagels, of course, New York classics, a trained cheesemonger that'll be offering local cheeses from the Hudson Valley, as well as different parts of New York, matching it with different meats and such, which I thought was kind of interesting as well. And then, of course, kind of what you would expect from a Capital One location, stocked shower suites, grab and go, food and drinks that they'll have for that. As far as that's my thoughts, we once again, we don't have a timeline for this. But one thing that'll be interesting is that JFK is going to be the first airport that has in the world that has all three major credit card lounges there: the Centurion, the Sapphire Lounge, and the Capital One Lounge. And they're actually all going to be in Terminal 4, which is interesting for as big as that airport is. They also, I think, believe that Terminal 4 is the major terminal for Delta, and they're doing work with their Delta Sky Club there. I think there's some expansion that is supposed to go on there. So pretty interesting aspect. Haven't been to JFK yet, but that would be an interesting run to be able to see all three of those lounges all in one place. So looking forward to getting over there to see that, maybe by the fall, I'm hoping. And then choice privileges. I mentioned about devaluation regarding to, the Preferred Hotel Awards. And so Choice Hotel has had this relationship with Preferred Hotels. And if you don't not really aware of Preferred Hotels, they're basically an independent collection of primarily boutique and luxury hotels, and really gives a nice spot for Choice, because Choice doesn't have those hotels, that type of level of hotels in its portfolio. So it's been a good deal. I haven't been able to stay at one yet, but I might have missed the boat, because the normal award redemption range has been anywhere from 20,000 points to 55,000 points. But now that has now changed, where you can be looking at it being over 80,000 points in a lot of cases. Now, there's some that won't be completely 80,000, but when you're talking 20 to 55,000, and you can start seeing ones in the 80s, that devaluation could be quite substantial on a lot of these hotels. Obviously, thoughts it's unfortunate. Choice has done this before, where they end up doing a devaluation with no notification. And so that's why I say it's unfortunate, but not surprising. The good opportunities to be able to stay at a preferred hotel using choice privileges is unfortunately probably going to be much more limited to be able to locate. But there probably will still be some spots in there. So if you have choice privileges and you've been a person that's participated in going to preferred hotels, you just might have to look a little bit harder now than you've had to before. But wanted to be able to share that with you because that was actually a pretty good option if you were had those points through choice privileges. Now, the Hilton, as I mentioned before, when I talked about the Mr. and Mrs. Smith, was the difference of what you're going to see with what we're looking at with a Hyatt and small luxury hotel. I'm sorry, Hyatt and Mr. and Mrs. Smith compared to what we're starting to find out more about with Hilton and small luxury hotels. Um, Obviously, Hilton announced this partnership in February. And so now they're basically in their test phase. And so right now they have released 3 hotels that could be booked through Hilton Honors, which is Taranca in Spain, as well as Nobu Hotel Marbella in Marbella, Spain, and Fleming's Mayfair in London. Now, I went onto my Hilton Honors account and I do see them listed, but I see, at least for Taranca, I only got a chance to look at that. They show sold out all the way through. I went through like April of next year. I don't think it's fully quite set up yet. I think they've put the hotels in there because um, even when I was just looking for looking for a couple of nights just to see what the point value was going to be, I couldn't see it. So if you're interested in kind of looking at that, kind of keep your eye out for that, and I will too, and make sure to let you know when I start seeing if there's availability. But I don't think that they've set it up for really using it yet, or they may have had something happen in their process of doing it. But they are listed under just Hilton Honors. If you just search under Spain, or for in this case, Formentera, Spain, you will find that hotel. So something to keep in mind to look at. But what I was really happy to see was the Hilton Honors value that you're going to be able to get staying at the small luxury hotels. So even if you're a member, you'll get your guaranteed discount. They are saying Wi-Fi and late checkout. Now I'm assuming that while I'm seeing late checkout, it's probably I would assume it's going to be based on availability. If it's not specifically written that way now, it's going to have to be sooner or later, probably sooner than later. You're also going to get bottled water, and then of course no resort fees on award stays, which once again, just as a member, is really a nice setup for that. But it gets better if you're silver. Then you get to trigger that bonus fifth night free, which can provide an excellent amount of value. And I love that on the fifth night free on Hilton, as well as the fourth night free on IHG. But then you get to gold, which a lot of people have, whether it's through the credit, their Hilton card, or if they have the American Express Platinum, you get gold status. You're going to get 80% elite bonus. You get to trigger the complimentary breakfast for 2, and you'll get space available upgrades, which for just being a gold that you didn't have to earn on a lot of these cards, you just are getting. That is a really good value, and what I really am interested in for possibly doing this with Hilton. Um, Diamond, though, I was surprised, didn't, at least at this point from what I've read, only thing I saw any different between the gold and the diamond was the increase in the elite tier bonus. That is it. And so I was a bit surprised that there wasn't more that diamond was going to get. And maybe they'll be rolling out something, but I don't think that's going to be sufficient enough for a person that's at the top of the scale, is just to get another 20% on your elite bonus. But I'll be interested to see what you all think about the small luxury hotels. I really was considering it before Hyatt gave it up or lost it, or whatever the proper term would be. But with these kind of automatic that comes with being gold, and just kind of getting that for having the business card or the platinum, something I'm going to look forward to, and probably keep my eye out for as they roll into these new phases for maybe next year. And then, so topic nine, I'm saying radical Southwest potential changes. And this was an interesting read that I've got to give credit to 1 Mile at a Time. I'll put a link for the article in the description at the end of the show. But I was very intrigued by this. And as a person that I'm not married, Southwest flies out of my local airport a lot. But I only fly Southwest normally when I'm going to see my son up in Maryland because I'm going through BWI, and that is the only airline I can take as a nonstop flight there from where I'm at. These potential changes are going to be interesting. Now we're still a long way off, but I will explain. So back in April, that was when they had their Q1 reporting of their quarter one, which was not that good. And the reasons for that was quite a few things. So obviously, Southwest only flies their Boeing 737 Maxes. So there was talk about production in certification issues. They also just notified shareholders and us that unit revenue was expected to be down in Q2 year over year. And then at that point, the CEO for Southwest made the following statement in quotes. We are evaluating options to enhance our customer experience as we study product preferences and expectations, including onboard seating and our cabin. At that point, when I knew about that and some different things I was reading about, the talk was really more about more leg room, some more space, and how would they kind of maybe realign the seating in there, and which was still would be beneficial, but wasn't that big. Well, 1 Mile at a Time did an article and talked about focus groups that are going on with Southwest that they found out some of what they were going over. And this didn't appear to be kind of that run of the mill focus group, that they actually were able to involve technology in the focus groups for people to, when they were talking about some different rumored topics that actually ended up seeming to be more real than anything. So I thought that that would be interesting. And I see that Tim is talking about about seat assignments. That'll be something I will touch on, which was interesting because I will be honest, I am not a person that likes the fact of what I call is the cattle call of being on there. Even if you pay for the early bird seating, I still do not like it. But I know a lot of people are very comfortable with it. Helps it to keep a low pricing in dollars. But they've obviously know they've got to do something to increase their revenue. And as I kind of run through these rumors that are going on from the focus groups, you'll see where there's could be some that some of these make sense for their revenue concerns. So let me go ahead and touch on some of these because some of these are quite substantial. So rumor number one, to break up the airplane cabin into three parts. So basically take the plane into thirds, premium, premier in the first third, select in the middle third. Now the exit rows would actually still be premium, premier, even if they're in the middle third, obviously for the exit rows. And then third would be standard. Now the price ranges that would be involved would be $15 to $25 for standard that they talked about, $20 to $50 for select, and $50 to $75 for premium premier. Now that was, once again, these are just focus groups to talk about, but there must have been some technology and graphics to kind of show what that vision may look like, which I find very interesting. So rumor number two would basically be basically evolve the fares. They would all stay the same that we're used to seeing, but they would include some different things. So on Wanna Getaways, you would get 2 free check bags, which is something that Southwest is definitely saying that no matter what changes go on, they really want to stick with that 2 free checked bags, which is a great value. No seat assignment, no ticket flexibility, even if you were willing to have a fee, which is very interesting because that seems to be a step back or a step down from the current want to get away flights where you would at least have some flexibility for change. This potential option would not have that. Then you would have the Wanna Getaway Plus, which would have which would include free ticket changes, and you would get the standard seat for free as part of a bundling that they would have with that. And then Anytime would give you the ability to select between standard or select seats for free, as well as everything that came with Wanna Getaway as far as the free ticket change. And then Business Select, where you would be able to select any seat for free and you would have in early boarding included. So I think that is kind of interesting in regards to this, but I think that it's unfortunate if it went this way, where the Wanna Getaway would basically have zero flexibility, and I'm not sure how many people would even get that fare. It's literally going to be bargain basement, but to not have any flexibility, even for a fee, is really going to be unfortunate if they went that route. So that would be rumor number two. Rumor number three is where now you get to the aggressively charging for seats. Whoops, went past. Um, where you're looking at, so customers would not be able to select a seat at reservation, but at the 72-hour mark, you could state a preference of the type of seat and the window, middle, or aisle seat that you would be interested in. And if you were traveling with somebody, that's where you would also be able to talk about if you're going to prioritize your seat preference or sitting with the companion. And then you would also be assigned, you would be assigned a seat. If you did not like the seat, then you would have the option of being able to pay additional to select to get your own seat. That one seems a bit more convoluted, so I'm not really totally sure of how that would look. But definitely, you can see where there's going to be something where they can be able to get some additional money. Now, rumor number four, as far as the seating, it's a combination. The cattle call looks like it would still continue. So you would still have Group A, B, and C, but Group A would be Premium Select, Group B would be Select, and Group C would be Standard. Now, that's not so much different than what it probably happens when I get on the plane. If I'm in A, most people are sitting in the front, and B, middle, C, in the back in most cases. Unless you're a C person and you're single, then you might be able to find a seat somewhere up front. Now, the numbering would be based on if you paid for the seat or not, which is interesting. And then lastly, that they would still do early boarding seating or basic that you could still pay for. That part's not overly surprising because that could still be a revenue generator, because you're still talking about each of those groups represent maybe about 60 per group. So if you're able to move up higher in the B or in each of those groups, it still would be something that a lot of people would pay for. I definitely would myself. So that's just some interesting, and that would be pretty radical for Southwest, which seems to have been pretty much going the same way they've gone for a long time. We've obviously seen where now, amazingly, they have now made their schedule available on Google Flights, which surprisingly is such a big deal, but it was. And now we got some revenue issues. They need to look at doing some things to kind of change that model. And so these are some of the things that they are talking about in focus groups. And thanks to 1 Mile at a Time for being able to kind of provide this information and show it. So that's kind of what things I'm looking at and have seen, and would be. And obviously, if there's any questions or thoughts, definitely happy to hear about it. Want to say thanks to Lonnie for stopping through. Yep, all is well today. Every day's a good day, and appreciate you stopping through just to stop through and check out. So but that's kind of what we've got for today. And so, but if there are not any questions or thoughts and anything, I cannot thank you all enough for taking the time. I see Tim jump back in. I better keep my Southwest Chase card another year to get that 4 upgraded boardings. Yeah, I there's no talk about what they would do with the cards. They're going to have to make some changes to that. I think that the cards will be the next thing that'll have to change somewhat, depending upon how drastic the changes, if any of these rumors and these changes end up happening. They're going to have to do something because there's going to be a case where there might be some really outsized value, especially in your example of the 4 upgraded boardings, that I don't know if they are going to be able to leave that way, depending upon this type of potential change that they do between the breaking up the plane into those 3 sections and the amount of money that would be involved. But definitely, if you're a flyer of it, hold on to it. But be prepared. There may be some adjustments that get done on it. But thank you all so much for taking the time to step into this. Really appreciate it. And I can't thank you all enough. And we'll look forward to talking with you all later. Thank you so much for stopping through.